Released towards the end of 1966, Hey Joe was the first single as a solo artist for Jimi Hendrix and one of his most well-known songs. Hendrix didn't write the song, and although its authorship is somewhat contested, his arrangement differs heavily from the upbeat rock recordings that came before, by bands such as The Leaves. Furthermore, he is arguably the artist who is most commonly associated with Hey Joe. Other personnel on the track include Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass, who completed the trio that was known as the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Hey, Hugh Foster on the bass here. So, with this song, my memory's a little bit hazy about when I did what, and whether this is, the second song that I learned on bass. I'm not sure, but it's there or thereabouts. And regardless, if you're just starting out yourself, then this is a great song to learn, right at the very beginning. It's not too challenging, but it's got a few moments which, just make it interesting enough. I first started learning bass properly when I got my own one at the age of 13. At some point at school, I have a memory of being in a practice room in the music department, messing around on the school's bass. I think we had one bass in the school. It was a battered old jazz copy, although it probably wasn't that old. It was just, in a secondary school. I want to say it was something like an Encore or a Stag, one of those cheap budget brands, no disrespect to them, but, one that you don't mind if it gets completely ruined. Had like a dark blue finish and a white scratch plate. And I've tried to find a picture of the exact sort of model, but I've yet to find it. I was in a practice room, messing around on it, and I think at some point I'd seen my brother play this song. And I think maybe even someone had shown me the chords, whether it was my brother, whether it was a friend, whether it was a music teacher. Who knows? It was just seemed to be like a moment in the practice room, either at lunch break or during one of the lessons, where I could just mess around on the bass. And I think I wanted to figure out the that riff that shows up at the end. And I think I figured out that bit and then realised, maybe by a process of elimination, that it was a pattern that then moved around, As I said before, it's a really good bass line to learn if you're just starting out because of its simplicity. It does teach you a lot of things, and we can go into varying levels of depth about this. First of all, let's just think of the key, right? It's actually in the key of E, and you can think E major, you can think E mixolydian. This is why I'm talking about varying levels, but basically, when you get to that E chord, it sounds resolved, okay? But the chords leading up to it don't all necessarily fit in that key, which is an interesting thing. So, it's tension, resolution, they're important musical concepts, even if, consciously I didn't understand that at the time. But I think that's what makes it an interesting thing. It's very cyclical as well, it's just one sequence going round. Anyway, it's in the key of E, okay? But I think E major doesn't fit it. I think it's more of an E mixolydian. But to be honest, you don't need to worry about this. This is why it's a good beginner bass line, okay? You can have that there in the back pocket if you want to start improvising, and also use the blues scale when you get to that E chord. Okay, you can combine those two scales as well, it's great. Let's break down the main part that goes most of the way through the song. 3, 4. By the way, right now I'm playing this with a pick because that's the way Noel Redding played generally. He was the classic case of a guitarist forced to play bass, which happens quite a lot, and I think more in rock than other styles really. Too many guitarists, and one of them at some point just needs to draw the short straw in their opinion and play the bass. However, I would have played this with fingers, and whatever's comfortable to you. I'm a big advocate of trying to play something with any technique, that's kind of suitable for it. However, I'm playing this with a pick and also playing quite near the neck because that produces the kind of sound that I'm after. It creates quite sort of round sound, and I think it's quite a stylistic thing of the 60s. You quite often see Carol Kaye playing pick bass this way. The concepts in this one, nice and simple. We've got 5 chords. Had to do a little bit of arithmetic in my head, counting over 4. It's tough business. We've got C. We've got G. We've got D. A and E. Okay? And it's just a case of moving between them in a very, very simple fashion. So from C to G, all you're doing is repeating the C and then going to G. And then climb up to D. Okay? So in terms of the relation to the actual root note itself, G, B is the major third of G. You also play the 4th as a passing tone up to D. So G, 3rd, 4th, then this is the next root note of the next chord. And then the pattern just repeats itself up a tone or 2 frets up from your starting point. And then you spend 2 bars playing E. And for the most part, he keeps it very, very simple. 2, 3, and then there's this unison thing. And in between, just play quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the notes in that, B, D, and E. And you play B and D like so. 1, 2, and 3. And eventually, as the song progresses, he starts to do, some more interesting things. So, especially, just still staying on E, but kind of just the odd hammer on from D below. Playing a few more 8th notes or quavers. The interesting thing about Noel Redding in this band, in the Jimi Hendrix Experience, he's the sensible one who's holding all the chaos together. Because you've got Jimi Hendrix, who's, like, everyone knows him. He's, this virtuoso kind of like loose cannon. And Mitch Mitchell, who's like a jazz drummer, who's kind of doing fills every other bar. It's pretty full on. So the thing that makes it work, on this track and other songs from the albums that they played together, is that Noel Redding is like kind of a bit dull. Let's now look at the unison riff that happens on a couple of occasions in this song. First time it happens is after the guitar solo. The great thing is that, the chord sequence doesn't change. You're just moving between the chords in a more creative and dynamic way. And it's almost like a walking bass line that you hear in, lots of jazz and blues. But it's, it's very prescriptive. It's the same pattern each time. The pattern being root note, and then going to the 3rd of the chord, which, if you were playing an arpeggio, the 3rd note, the 3rd degree would be there. Okay, it'd be E. You go down the octave, which in itself is one of the coolest intervals, in my opinion. And then from that point, it's chromatic. Chromatic being up 1 fret or semitone at a time. okay, until you get to the next chord in the sequence, being G. And then from this one, because we're keeping the pattern going, it's now, the third is now up. From that point, do the same pattern again. So we go down. Okay, so D, then go find its third, but go down the octave. And then final part, go to the third of A, C sharp. And then we get to E. And by this point, you know, everyone's really going for it. So in full context, you could be something like this. Oh, I don't know if you ever get to that adventurous, but, you know, find other places where you can play E on the fretboard and, you know, extrapolate from that kind of pattern where he's doing a hammer on from D to E. Okay, this is a song that's really useful for figuring out, you know, stuff that sounds good to improvise with, you know, and just see what works and, you know, train your ear to what sounds good and what doesn't, and, you know, what to avoid and what to play, and try and figure out what taste is, you know, what's tasteful. I think as a 13-year-old, I probably wasn't tasteful. I was probably very busy, but you know, it all comes with time. Last of all, I'm actually going to go back to the intro part, which, you know, it's easy to forget because it's a bar of music. No, it's not even a bar, it's 2 beats. So I probably ignored this bit when I was first learning this song. I just thought, that's too tricky, I'll come back to it. It's another unison thing that happens at the very beginning. So Jimmy does this thing. And it's a typical sort of Hendrixy thing. It's just interplay between 3 notes. A, 12th fret on the A string, B, 14th fret, D, 12th fret on the D string. But I think at the time, my left-hand technique was probably awful, and I didn't want to bother with that. It just felt too fast and fiddly. But yeah, this part of it, it's worth doing because, you know, it's a good little exercise. A, B, D, A, B, D, B. And to get between the A and the B, you're hammering on. And playing with the pick, you just go down and up, down, up, down, up. Okay, but playing with the fingers, it would be something like that. If you are a proper beginner and you're just getting to things, give this bit a go, but, you know, don't be disheartened if it's a bit of a struggle, because I think I just, you know, I was self-taught. I didn't have a teacher trying to teach me these things. I was just going, I'll come back to that. Anyway, I've been Hugh Foster on the bass, and don't forget that all the transcriptions and backing tracks for all of my video lessons are available on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/Hugh Foster. All right, nice one, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.